Good morning, everybody. Welcome back to Crypto Warehouse. New day, different crypto news, and some really good news, especially for those of you holding Crow. We're going to get into that in a little bit. Simon Kelly says, are we back? We are finally back, and we're going to tell you what we're talking about in a minute. First of all, before we begin, there is definitely a possibility that we break all-time highs very, very soon. We are sitting at 109. Everything points either to 114, 115,000 or a rejection. I don't think we're going to get that rejection. I think we're going to go a bit higher before we come down. Everything looks primed for Powell to do a reversal. That's just what I want to get off my chest now. I try to give an overall sense of what's going on, but more importantly than Bitcoin, I think Ethereum is about to rip. The amount of Ethereum being bought by BlackRock and all of the ETFs is incredible. I mentioned yesterday BlackRock owns 1.5% of Ethereum now. Tens and tens of thousands of Ethereum a day are disappearing, and they are only going into the pockets of the ETFs. So expect or hope for a $3,000 Ethereum before the end of the month, certainly. That's just my hunch. But anyway, what we're going to talk about today, we're going to talk about a new ETF application, and it's a big one. I've even made a video about it this morning to cover it. Got up at 6:30 to get the video done and published. That's the opening article today. We're going to talk about Grayscale rebalancing their portfolios. We're going to talk about Cardano. We're going to talk about XRP. We're going to talk about Crow. We're then going to talk about gold, and then we're going to talk about Volkswagen. Got to throw the odd car article in there, haven't we? Before we begin, however, good morning, Hidden Agendas. Danny, Velvet Rope, Simon, Bullish Bull, Mags. Again, I don't know where anybody is. Everybody seems to have abandoned the ship. There's literally 6 of us left on the ship. I feel like that film where he wakes up 6,000 years too early and he's on his own in the ship. That's how I feel. I cannot believe the lethargy we've got in crypto at $109,000 for Bitcoin. I know a lot of you are hurting, your alts are down, your alts are bleeding, I know that. But Bitcoin has to lead the way. Now is not the time to be a Debbie Downer, okay? Now is the time to be an Ursula Upper. Okay, let's leave that one there. Should we have a look at the charts and see where Bitcoin is, where Ethereum is, where Solana is? Solana and XRP expecting big things as well from those two in the next few weeks. Make sure it's loading. It certainly is. Bitcoin coming in still at 109,000 or thereabouts. Ethereum back over $2,600. I think that is going to crack to the upside any day now. It feels light. It feels as if it wants to move up. And who's to stop it? XRP at 233. Maybe that's up on the news that we're going to cover first as well. Solana is also up at 152.50. Good price there as well. Cardano back at 60 cents. I'm a little bit happier now that Cardano is at 60 cents. That's the price it should be at. Next move up for that would be 80 cents. And Hyperliquid is not giving up the chase. It's caught up a little bit. I mean, Cardano is, over the last week, ahead, back over 21 billion. But Hyperliquid at 13 billion, is it going to join the ranks of the 20 billionaires? I don't know, you know. I don't think it's got enough legs, but it can prove me wrong. Sui is coming in 12th place. That'll get back over $3 or $4 in the very near future. What happened with the Golden Visa is just a flash in the pan. It shouldn't really affect the price of that. Chainlink, Bitcoin Cash, how that hasn't died, I don't know. Chainlink is looking good, and that makes up your top 15 or so gainers over the last 24 hours. There it is, the big CRO. The big cojones, the numero uno, the alpha crypto of the hour is Kronos. And we're going to tell you why very soon. Up almost 20%. SPX that we keep telling you about, that's up 14%. Floki had a new release. I think something hundreds of thousands of NFTs have been minted on their main net. That's up 11%. Radium is going to do well because Sol is doing well. Pol is up for no reason other than maybe Ethereum is on the march. Sandbox, please do me a favor. Pith is up. Aave, lots of gainers today. And losers, other than Peter Schiff, we've got Bonk, Pudgy, the coin I won't mention, Story. Maple is retracing to 50 cents. That is pretty good. I think 49 cents is where it's going to go to. If it goes lower, 44 cents. But I think 44 to 49 cents is the place to get Maple. I said it a week ago, I think 30th of June, 1st of July, something like that. I think that period, that range is a good price for Maple. And there is some news that hasn't come out yet. Yes, they are going to be on Converge, but that isn't the news that I'm not allowed to tell you about. There's going to be another chain that will have Maple Finance on it. I'm just going to put that out there. I'm not allowed to give you the information. I will be hung, drawn, and quartered for divulging that information. Right, let's get into some snippets then. Not too much today. Yesterday was a lot of charts and a lot of numbers. I don't want to do that today. It's a smaller crowd. As I said yesterday, it's intimate. President Trump says tariffs have had zero impact on inflation. Powell has been whining like a baby about non-existent inflation for months. Cut interest rates, Jerome. Now, believe it or not, many other people are on Trump's side. Matthew Hyland, we're going to bring up his little bit in a second, but I follow Trueflation, and I advise you guys to follow Trueflation as well. Trueflation has come out and said that inflation in America right now is 1.75%. 1.75%, below 2%. Why have we not seen rate cuts? Even I am on the case of why we haven't seen rate cuts. Now, a couple of people, again, I always like to try and give different opinions. Pentoshi, if you don't follow Pentoshi, what are you doing? Go and give him a follow. The rest of the world is sitting at all-time highs on stocks doing 5 to 10x. Metals melting up. Even uranium did a 2x in the last few months. Bitcoin and Ethereum, two fastest growing ETFs ever. $5 trillion spending package, the only no up. Not about alts, which cause a huge discount between CT and 99% of the rest of the world. They don't see the market through the lens of people who traded pump fund tokens over the past year. They see it for its potential. Again, alluding to something I've been talking about now for quite a few weeks, which is what happens if retail are coming to crypto through ETFs. It means the ETFs that are coming for Solana XRP and, of course, Truth Media, which we're going to talk about in a second, they're also going to get big pumps because they are ETFs. Maybe the alt season is not what we expect it to be. Right then, Dan, I think it's Dan, or is it Matthew Hyland, had the little rant. Matthew Hyland I've got as well. Dan is talking about where we are with Bitcoin in his eyes. Bitcoin dominance is probably the most steady trend we've ever seen in crypto. I believe that trend from here to here, so from the bottom of 2022 until today, which is, 3 years now, has done nothing but go up almost. It's actually gone up higher than a 45-degree angle. It has not stopped. Now, there is a 70% line on his chart. There's a 70% line on my chart. I don't think we're going to get there. We're at 65.5%. Something has to give. Now, his idea is that there is a market-wide mania after a big Bitcoin move. and large amounts of money being printed and rate cuts. So again, the kind of things we've been talking about on here for a very long time. In fact, before the beginning of the year, we were talking about these things. Rate cuts, absolutely. The $5 trillion coming into the market, that's going to be a big thing. But for me, I think these milestone Bitcoin prices and milestones for Bitcoin are going to be the things that drive people into the ETFs. You're going to have a drop below 2 million Bitcoin. You're going to get Bitcoin hitting $125,000 or $150,000. Potentially, there is a scenario where Bitcoin is at $150,000 and it appears all over the news. And that will push us up and beyond any number that I've been mentioning for a while. Maybe it's only 125 to do that. Maybe it's only 115,000 and the mention of all-time highs. But there's going to be a spark that fires this pump. And then we're going to get alt season. But I don't think it's soon. I think we're going to have a nice move up soon. I just think we have one more leg down before we go up. And that's simply because we do like these 25-30% corrections in crypto. Now, if we go to 130, 125, and we lose 30%, we come back down to 97, 98, 100,000. That could be it. Then we spend August feeling sorry for ourselves, and then October we rip up. Now then, Matthew Hyland has gone dark. Not dark in the sense that he's stopped tweeting, but dark in the sense of his tweets. Jerome Powell and the experts all told you high inflation was coming in Q2 due to tariffs. I think I read this out yesterday, but I think he's retweeted it. They fearmongered over tariffs for months, drove mass fear, yet high inflation never happened. It's just been following oil the whole time. And this chart is the Bitcoin price overlaid with oil. And it does look very, very similar. What I would say about inflation is one of the big drivers of inflation is oil. So if oil goes up in price, inflation goes up in price. That is something to bear in mind. But the stock market realised they were wrong and inflation was not coming, hence the sharp rebound over the past few months. While many called for a bear market in April due to tariffs, we were never calling for a bear market in April on tariffs. We were never telling you we were going to go any lower. But Matthew Hyland, I think, has had enough. And I don't blame him. I am not as angry, though, because I'm not an American. So I'm allowed to not get as angry as that. Right then, last one before we get into the actual news. Bitcoin critic Peter Schiff says tokenized gold is where blockchain and crypto will ultimately end up. Tokenizing real assets adds value. Tokenizing worthless strings of numbers does not. He's now teasing his own gold-backed token. Now, this beggars belief that this man can sit there with his perfectly coiffed hair and his perfectly chiseled beard and tell you that lumps of shiny rock that need 24/7, 365 protection can be tokenized, and that's the future of Web3. Peter Schiff fell out of the tree of righteousness and hit the wrong answer on the way down, and has been doing for the last 15 years. Before Bitcoin began, he's been wrong. And he's been wrong ever since. He was wrong at 1,000, at 3,000, at 20,000, at 100,000. He has been wrong. And I was only thinking the other day, I've not heard from Peter Schiff for a while. He's gone very, very quiet. And up he pops talking about his tokenized gold. I think it's called tgold.com. I think that's what he's been talking about. Okay? He's so wrong that even when he talks about himself being right, he's clearly wrong. Pax Gold has been around for 4 or 5 years. It already exists. Tokenizing gold was one of the first things we ever did. There are, I think, 3 gold assets out there. They've been around forever and a day. Up rocks Peter Schiff as if he's reinvented the bloody wheel. I'm going to do tokenized gold because that's the end game. How is the end game still having lumps of shiny rock in a cage with armed guards 24/7. How is that the end game? When we've built the Bitcoin network, the most secure, decentralized, dispersed network that's ever existed. How is swapping Bitcoin for gold, in his example, the right thing to do? Bitcoin can move in seconds. Gold physically can't go anywhere without employing a team of Eddie Halls to carry it in rucksacks. I just don't get him. It's like, I can't talk about him anymore because I'll get angry. And I don't want to get angry. It won't do my blood pressure any good. Good morning, KB. Simon Kelly has asked, are we back? Yes, we are back. And this is why we are back. Good morning, Kishan. I hope you are doing well. In fact, the title of the stream today is Cromania. Is this going to load? Oh, I've refreshed it. Why did I do that? Now, I got up early to make a video about this. It's called Crow is Back. The video, it's 9 minutes long. It explains everything that I think about this. Truth Social, Trump Media. I get them all confused. They are going to create a blue chip crypto ETF. And the reason that everybody is so happy is because of the breakdown of this ETF. And it is here. Bitcoin, clearly top dog, 70% of the ETF. Ethereum, 15%. Solana, 8%. And this is something I find quite funny. I've been tweeting about this all night. Cronos is 5% and XRP is 2%. And the reason I think that has happened is in my video that you need to watch called Crow is Back. Literally uploaded it an hour ago. Now, Fortis or Forest DAX Trust Company, for those of you that don't know, is Crypto.com. Okay? Now, they're going to become a custodian of all of Trust Media, Truth Media, whatever they've called themselves. They are going to be the custodian of all of the ETFs. But this one in particular is the exciting one because 5% in Crow might not sound like a lot, but you've got to think about the market cap. Bitcoin is 2.2 trillion. Cronos is 3 billion. It's 1/100th of the size, or 1/80th of the size, whatever it works out as. Now, what that means is, let's say this gets to a $10 billion ETF. That's $500 million of Cronos. $500 million of Cronos. And for a $3 billion asset, that's going to do an awful lot for the price of Crow. Not today, not tomorrow, not August, not 2025, probably not 2026, maybe 27, 28. Okay, this is a long-term event. Look at how long it's taken to get to where we are with Bitcoin and Solana. Think how long it's going to take for the ETF to be approved. 6 months, 9 months, 12 months to get this ETF approved. And when it is approved, we are going to see big moves for Cronos, because this is passive buying of diamond hands who are buying into this ETF. Now, you might say, why are people going to buy this when they can go and buy BlackRock? Because Donald Trump is going to stand there and do that with his lovely, beautiful blonde hair and say, buy my Truth blue chip ETF. And all the Republicans are going to go and buy it. All the people that know nothing about crypto are going to go and buy it. And it's going to be worth a lot of money to Donald. It's going to be worth a lot of money to the Trump family. But who cares? Because if you're a Crow bag holder and you've been holding since we fell down to 5 or 6 cents, then just being at 9.5 cents now is irrelevant. This is going to go higher. It's not going to go to $3 or $4 before anybody says that, but it is very much likely to go somewhere north of $1 with this. And I expect more of this kind of stuff. So this is the positive news. I don't want to read too much about this because I've made the video about it and I don't want to take up the entire stream. But suffice to say, this is great news. And believe you me, okay, there are tens of projects out there, Sui, Cardano, who have buckets of boiling pee. That's the cleanest way of me explaining it to you about this. Everybody has the green-eyed monster this morning, other than Solana, XRP, Crow. They don't. But even the XRP army are fuming that they've only got 2% of this. And again, I explain in the video why I think that has happened. Now then, let us move on. We're going to talk a little bit about Grayscale. Grayscale have multiple funds. Again, they're not ETFs yet. They're just funds, private trusts that they hold, and they go out and buy these shares. They were doing it before ETFs existed. They had the first Bitcoin, the first Ethereum, the first Solana trust. They've existed for a long time. And they rebalance their portfolios from time to time. And I think they are hedging their bets on what could come soon. Nobody has talked about an Ondo ETF. I think I'm the first person who has ever mentioned an Ondo ETF. Why wouldn't we have an Ondo ETF? Makes perfect sense in my eyes. Secondly, we should have a real world asset ETF, and that would have Ondo, and that would have maybe Om and Mantra, and maybe it will have Maple Finance in there. A real world asset ETF, it's around the corner. However, Grayscale can smell what's coming, and adding Ondo and HBAR to their smart contract platform is a positive for those two coins, but also it signals where Grayscale thinks the market is going. Remember, we made a video about Maple Finance being added to, when was it, March or April? I think it was March that Grayscale added Maple. Maple then went and did a 4x. I'm not saying that Hedera and Ondo are going to do a 4x. What I'm saying is they tend to get in before most other people get in. And I said in my video that I made all those months ago, it wouldn't be a bad idea for you to go and, follow Grayscale on X or go and join their newsletter, because they kind of give you a heads up, and they've got teams of people watching this. And yes, they get stuff wrong, but they get most of it right. So this DeFi fund holds Ondo, Aave, Uniswap. Good package of that. The smart contract fund has dropped Polkadot. Again, Polkadot is dead to me. It's got Ethereum, Solana, Cardano, and HBAR. Again, solid projects. We're getting to the stage now where you're seeing real projects come through and start to be looked at by the serious people. These are all the projects we have been talking about for 2 years. Bitenza, personally, I don't like it. Near Protocol, I love. Render, great. Don't hold any Render or Bitenza, but I do hold Near Protocol. So this rebalancing is more like Grayscale being the miner bird in the mine, and it signals to you where it thinks the market is going to go, and it's never that wrong, as I said. So it might not be a bad idea to go and check, but it's positive news for Hedera. Hedera is going to get an ETF as well, don't forget. Hedera is something which is also, I believe it's ISO 9000 or ISO 10022, whichever one it is. It's also involved with XRP. I think Hedera is going to have something to do with CBDCs as well. And Hedera and XRP work quite closely together. So again, I think that's another coin to look at. I don't hold any of that either. You can't hold everything, otherwise you fumble a lot. Right, let's move on very quickly. Where are we? Cardano price prediction. Hoskinson confirms talks with Circle and Tether. Massive stablecoin partnership coming. Months and months and months we have been talking about the fact if you have a chain and you do not have liquidity, you are not going to drive activity. One of the biggest things that Solana did to get to where it is today is chase Circle around the block until Circle added USDC to Solana. And then it started off on tiny, tiny amounts. But everything exploded on Solana from that moment onwards. We're now seeing Syrup USDC is the largest yield-bearing stablecoin on Solana. It's been there a month. You can now go and earn a decent 4, 6, 8% APR or APY on stablecoins on Solana. That's why you need stablecoins, because sometimes people want to sit on profits in stables and they want to park it making a passive 4, 5, 6%. Cardano, one of the oldest blockchains that's still relevant because of Charles. What are they doing? Get the stablecoins. Why is it such a big deal to get stablecoins on Cardano? It's the biggest flaw in their ecosystem. They're so damn slow. It's like watching Man United trying to buy a footballer. Liverpool get off a plane, make a phone call, and the player is at the training ground. Arsenal, nearly as bad as Man United, but not quite. Man City have bought 5 players before Man United have got to the office. Cardano are the Man United of crypto. They are so goddamn slow getting to where they need to get to, and everybody can see they need a striker, and in this case, stable coins. Ridiculous. And if you don't understand the football analogy, I do apologize. Think of your husband taking his time getting the shopping in from the car. The founder of Cardano, Charles, once again confirmed that the project's foundation has engaged in conversations with the founding entities behind Circle and Tether. I mean, come on, Charles. It doesn't need a conversation. Just get it done. It took Solana a couple of months. In a lengthy discussion about the matter, Hoskinson emphasised we talk to Circle probably every month to 2 months. Now, there is a good chance maybe Circle and Tether don't want to go to Cardano. That is a good chance. Pick a different stablecoin. Get get PayPal to come over. Get USD1 to come over. Trump stablecoin. Why does it have to be Circle and Tether? Just get some stablecoins on there. On the Cardano Foundation to pay $23 million and mint a bunch of liquidity, which they won't. Again, this is the issue. They won't spend the money. They don't get the money. They don't spend the money. They don't get stablecoins. Hoskinson is skeptical about how much impact this could actually have on bringing more DeFi apps to Cardano. I mean, Charles, come on. People seem to think that the inclusion of Circle and Tether will somehow magically supercharge the Cardano ecosystem. That's not true. It's the opposite. No, it's not, Charles. It's absolutely right. Look at how wormholes are sending money back and forth between Ethereum and Solana. The biggest issue on Cronos is the lack of the ability to get liquidity into Cronos from Solana. But this is Cronos we're talking about, not Cardano. Conversations date back to 2021, 4 years ago. He refused to bring their flagship... They were astonished they refused to bring it to his blockchain back then. Why would they go to Cardano in 2021? Cardano in 2021 was a little bit like a cardboard house. The lights didn't work because they didn't have any lights. There was no door. There was no hinges. It was a facade that had great staking. That was it. And then it exploded, as it can. Smart contracts, the DeFi stuff all came in, all started to build itself out. It got faster and faster and faster. Now they're going to launch the 2 new tokens, the biggest airdrop. It's going to take off. But for the love of all that is holy, Charles, sort it out. $23 million to get stablecoins onto your exchange. Why do I have to go and get a separate wallet to use Cardano? Why can't I use Phantom? Why can't I use Phantom? You know why? Because there's no way of getting money onto your chain. I can't go and buy SNEC, and if I do, I've got to go to a centralized exchange to do it. I can't go and stake my ADA somewhere on a DeFi platform on Cardano because it's a pain in the backside getting it there. I want to be able to use MetaMask, Phantom, or whatever other one I fancy. I don't want to have to use specific wallets to use your platform. Again, what would happen if Circle or Tether announced they were going to Cardano? We would see an 80-cent to $1 Cardano. So, in answer to Charles's question, is spending $23 million getting liquidity onto Cardano? If it's going to increase the entire value of the blockchain by 30%, I think you've got your own answer there, haven't you? I was in a good mood till I read that article. Now I'm not in a good mood. Right then, where are we? XRP dances sideways while futures open interest surges to multi-month high. Same with Bitcoin. Futures are high over there. Questions are being raised as to whether XRP is witnessing the calm before the storm thanks to intensified consolidation between 220 and 230. That's the price it loves. And again, for all of those people out there moaning, do you want to go back to a 30-cent XRP? I don't think so. 220 to 230 for where we are in this bull run is absolutely perfect. We could get to $5, $7, $8 from here. We couldn't do that 6-7 months ago. We can now. Cardano, to get to $3 to $5 from where it is a bigger jump. So XRP, for me, out of the two, is in a better position. We've got the ETF coming for XRP. Where's the Cardano ETF? Charles is lagging. He needs to sort himself out. XRP's bullish symmetrical triangle plays out. According to Vlad, XRP is coiling within a large symmetrical triangle, signaling growing pressure for a major move. I kind of get what is coming up. I've got the same feeling about Bitcoin and Ethereum. I think there's going to be a move. Not saying it's a permanent move. I'm saying it's a move. I think we're going to break. Look at how long we've been in this little range for. A while. The pressure is mounting on Powell. Something's going to go. Now, again, a lot of people in here are going to put a lot of price predictions that I think are going to be unachievable. We're not going to go to $5 on XRP, but certainly 275 I think would be a really good target. What's that? That's a 20% move. I think 270, 275 is certainly on the cards. 222 to 236, that's a good range for us to be in. But, I mean, look at that. There's a move coming. We just don't know well. Could XRP reach $5 in 2025? He thinks it's a stretch, but a breakout above 350 to 4 would signal strong momentum and open the door to new all-time highs. I think we've got $5 XRP if we get the ETF, and the ETF doesn't see massive selling from Grayscale. Then I think we see $5. That's what I'm hanging my hopes on. The same with Solana. Solana is going to go a lot higher if we can get the ETF sorted out sooner rather than later and give it chance before the end of the year. Still think we could do $600 on Solana. Certainly $300 is the next big target for me from where we are now. Again, what we at 153? It's a big ask, yes. But once the ETF dates are approved and we know we're going to get them, I do expect to move. Look at every other move. We see massive build-up. We're then told when we're going to get the ETF. And then what happens on the day of the ETF? The price slides. Buy the rumor, sell the news has worked really well for the Bitcoin ETF, the Ethereum ETF, and it's more than likely going to work for the Solana ETF, the XRP ETF, and everything else. But I do think we're going to go north. $5 by the end of this bull run. If the bull run finishes in November, I think is achievable if we go north of $3 anytime soon. I don't think we are, but if we did. So $10 is going to be a long shot for me as well. I don't think we're going to get $10 for quite a few years, even though people keep telling me it's 360. Excuse me. I don't think we're going to see $10 for a very, very long time, unless something earth-shattering happens. It's not going to happen. But XRP is in a really good position. Let's not worry too much about it not going there. It's going to go there. Right then. So this is the big one. Okay. Now, why is this the big one? Because as far as I'm concerned, we have got a couple of things that need to be sorted out. Kronos, the chain, has seen massive pumps across most of the big projects over there in the last 24 hours. What did Crow do? It went above 10 cents and then came straight back down again. And now it's at 9.6 cents. We're not going to 50 cents. We're not going to $1. We're not going anywhere near that. We saw a big pump up when Trump won the election. We slid. We saw a big pump up when Chris Marszalek came out and spoke. It slid. We didn't even break 10 cents and hold it on this news. Okay? This is not news for now. This is news for the future. Okay? Don't buy Crow today at 10 cents and think you're going to 5 or 10x your money in the next few months, because I seriously doubt that's going to happen. Okay? But it is big bullish news. Crow was selected, as we've already discussed. It surged 18%, which is fantastic. But Crow is more than just the token. The Kronos chain, it's now 90% faster. Block time has been reduced by 90%, or block size has been increased by 90%. I can't remember which way around it is now. But it's 90% cheaper. So all of those transactions that used to cost you 10, 12 cents now cost you a cent. The confirmation times on all of those transactions are now like lightning. So they've prepped for this, and they clearly know more about this than we do. They're also going to launch their own stable coin. That's coming up. Now, all of those things should see Crow go somewhere 13, 14, 15 cents, 16 cents, somewhere around that price. For this bull run, I think 60 cents is an incredible price if we can get anywhere near that. I think that's a good price. The reason this is included, by the way, and I don't want to ruin the video, is, of course, they sponsored Trump to win the election. They gave him $1 million or $2 million, I can't remember which it was. But again, I am very, very bullish on the long-term prospects of the Kronos chain. You need to see these kinds of confirmations to see where it could potentially go. Of course you do. But being involved and getting this ETF over the line will be a hurdle, and it needs to be done. Getting the stable coin launched and then incentivizing people to use that stable coin is another battle. Connecting up the Kronos chain with the credit card, or the debit card, is something that they need to do, and they need to support the Kronos chain. And when all of that works, Kronos and Crow will be a lot better off than they are today. And again, the Kronos chain, it's a little bit like the mushrooms. They're just basically locked in a very dark room and not told anything. And I think at some point, they've got to let the cat out the bag and explain. The roadmap is great, but the roadmap doesn't show how we get the Kronos chain active or how we get Crow to $1. I don't even think we're going to get anywhere near that this bull run, even though people will tell you we're going to $2.71. It's not going to happen. 60 cents would be a godsend, in my opinion. And that is all it is. At the end of the day, it's my opinion. Let's move on. I'm talking about another stable coin. Another week, another stable coin. Good morning, Tariq. I hope you are well. Tether now holds 80 tons of gold worth 80 billion. This is why companies want to own stable coins and run stable coins, because it's just a money printing business. That's all it is. It makes money hand over fist. Look at the Circle performance. Obviously, it's going to come down now because it's way overvalued. But if Tether was to IPO tomorrow, Tether would be worth what? 10 times the value of Circle? Be $1 trillion business, and I wouldn't think anything of that. They are accumulating tens of thousands of Bitcoin a year. They're accumulating tons and tons of gold a year. They are buying businesses. They are buying and buying and buying, and they are doing it in a sensible manner. They could keep their treasury in cash, but being in crypto, they know damn well it's going to deteriorate over the next 10 years. So what they're doing, they're buying gold, an inflation hedge, and they're buying Bitcoin, outperforming everything. So they're very, very, very well off. And in 5 years' time, their treasury is going to be multiples higher in value than it is now, because the dollar will keep depreciating, gold will keep going up in value, and so will Bitcoin. 80 tons of gold. That's nearly 5% of its reserves. So you work out 5%, so 20 times they've got... No, that can't be right. Oh, 8 billion. Hang on. I think they've got $8 billion worth of gold, not 80. Tether may need to sell the gold to meet EU and US stablecoin rules. We've heard about this. There's also a few things being thrown into the Stablecoin Act which you might not know about. And one is that I don't think Tether and Circle are going to be allowed to offer a yield. And the reason they've done that is not for the good of the tech, it's not for the good of the industry, it's because of the banks. The banks would be crushed. If you could take all of your dollars or euros or pounds or shekels and you could stick them into Tether earning 5%, why would you have your money in the bank? You wouldn't. Same with Circle, same with lots of other stablecoins. You wouldn't. The bank run would be biblical. It would be the end of a majority of banks. It would be over. But banks, by the way, they're more than happy to have their stablecoin and earn their 5% and pay you 0.5%. They're more than happy to do that. They just don't want you to get the 4 or 5%. That's the difference. And that's why I think Trump has bowed to the pressure of the banks and not allowed Circle and Tether to offer a yield. Now, there is a lot more to this. I'm just going to check how much time we've got left. I don't want to overrun. I've got ages left. That is good. Right, fantastic. I can go through some of this now. Why is that header so big that it shoves the content so far down? The growing role of stablecoins like USDT has regulators on edge in both the US and the European Union. Proposed and existing restrictions now limit the types of assets that can back fiat-linked digital tokens. The irony of the US and the EU forcing Tether to sell gold because they can't use it as a reserve asset just shows you how crappy a job America and the EU have done of looking after their own currencies. When you're forcing a private company to sell gold because it's not an asset that they're allowed to back dollars with, it is absolutely unforgivable. But what they will do is they will allow you to buy their treasuries until the cows come home. But God forbid you have gold. Everything went wrong when we came off the gold standard. Everything went wrong. If Tether decides to operate in those markets under official authorization, it would be required to sell off the gold backing USDT to meet compliance standards. I mean, how can they honestly say that with a straight face to Tether? Yeah, you can't back your stable coin with gold. That hasn't stopped one company from pushing forward with another gold-backed asset, XAUT, a separate token issued by Tether that is pegged 1-to-1 with physical gold. Each coin equates to 1 ounce of the metal and can be redeemed for real gold inside Switzerland. Very cool website, by the way. If you ever want to go and check that out, you can, if you hold XAUT, if you hold PAXG, you can go to the website, you can put your token code in, and it will show you a physical picture of your bar of gold, or it used to 2 or 3 years ago when I went last looked at it. The current total XAUT in circulation represents 7.7 tons of gold, or roughly 819 million. That number is still tiny compared to leading gold exchange traded platforms like SPDR, which has 950 tons. Paolo defends gold as safe haven amid global uncertainty. The decision to buy gold and store this much gold isn't based on vibes. It's rooted in what Paolo sees as rising economic instability and a growing distrust of fiat currencies. Absolutely agree with that statement 100%. Let's make sure the stream is still up. Perfect. Paolo pointed specifically to the US increasing debt, warning that concerns about the dollar's long-term strength could push investors into more tangible alternatives. Again, the long-term goal of Bitcoin is to hold value against your local currency. A lot of people, and I've said this a few times now, you go to your shop, you buy a loaf of bread for £1. You go back to the same shop 2 years later, and that loaf of bread is £1.30. Very simplistically, I'm going to say this. The loaf of bread doesn't cost £1.30. The money that you're using to buy your loaf of bread has devalued by maybe 20%. That's simply how it works. There are lots of other things to take into account, of course, supply and demand. But the way to think about the cost of your goods is not to think about them getting more expensive. Flip it on its head and think about the fact that the money in your pocket is worth less than it was last year. What is inflation? It's the cost of everything going up. No, it isn't. It's the value of your currency going down because they print more. So if you have had the COVID pandemic where they printed 30% of the money, that makes you the money in your pocket worth 30% less. So of course your coffee is now going to cost €6 and not €4, but it's the same coffee. It costs the same amount to produce, roughly, and outside of the olive oil problem that we had, outside of the Ukraine problem that we had, everything is pretty much the same. It's the cost of the goods based on the money in your pocket. That's why inflation at 2% is bad. Why do they push for 2% inflation? Because they're allowed to print as much money as they want. That's all it is. They will print as much money and keep inflation down, and they'll tax you more to keep inflation down. And that's just how this very sorry game works. And to some respect, gold, and to a big respect, Bitcoin, they are your escape pods. Think of it this way. The value of your Bitcoin is going to get to a point where it doesn't go up that much, but it will go up at maybe 8% a year, 6% a year in value. It isn't. It's staying the same, but the currency used to buy it, you need more and more of this debased currency to buy that Bitcoin. Same with gold. So when people tell you, oh, it's to do with this, that, and the other, it's to do with the fact that they print the money. The only people that cause inflation are the governments. I think somebody very, very famous once said that, and I 100% agree with it. Do I think Tether should sell their gold to meet the EU standards? I would not do that. I would not offer my services in the EU. It is an administration that is failing its citizens. Now then, Volkswagen ADMT chooses Solana-based Hivemapper to power robotaxi test fleet. Hivemapper CEO said the partnership shifts mapping from static to living, and that robotaxi fleets require data that evolves as fast as the streets do. Now, again, we've covered a couple of these things in the past. We've covered, I think Tariq had it as well. There is a sound app that you can get for your phone where you can measure the decibels in your area, and that allows big data to see what parts of a city are noisier than others at different times. You have, of course, the 5G and the internet product Helium that I'm not a massive fan of. You've now got Hivemapper, which is going to allow for real-time updates. I mean, I think Google does a good enough job of this as well. And there is Robotaxi, very, very pretty, with their little Volkswagen logo on the front. So this will allow for autonomous driving, and it will source real-time street-level data from B-Maps, a spatial intelligence service that runs on Hivemapper's Solana-based mapping network. Why? No thanks. B-Maps aggregates imagery from drivers who install proprietary B and upload the footage that machine learning models translate into lane markings, signage, and temporary work zones. That is a massive undertaking. I will just say that. However, if you're going to do it on a blockchain, do it on something like Solana. Participants earn honey tokens for each validated segment, giving Hivemapper what it calls the world's freshest map data. Hivemapper, which records contributions on the Solana blockchain, says its network now covers a double-digit share of global roads and updates more frequently than traditional fleet car surveys. BMAP sells this data through API that feed routing, localization, and curb management engines used by logistics firms and now robotaxi developers. Very, very sexy indeed. And live updates there. Deep in momentum. I love this term. Deep in momentum. Decentralized physical infrastructure networks. Deep in. It's like infra. These Web3 people, they like to use new terms to explain old objects, old things. And if you look at DHL, if you look at any delivery service, if you look at any ISP, if you look at any telephone company, it's all deep in. That's what deep in is. Decentralized stuff that sits in different places. And it's a big thing. And it's like, you know, people say to you, what has crypto ever solved? That's always the big question you get asked. What real-term problem does Bitcoin ever solve or crypto ever solve? And the answer is very simply put, to solve real-world problems that have not been already solved is not going to be something you can do overnight. It takes years and years and years. Hivemapper, much as I think this is going to be a brilliant invention, I'll never invest in it because it's just not my cup of tea. But if you're into Deepin, it's something you should look at. We do love, of course, Compute 3 AI, the COM token. Again, no affiliation with them whatsoever. What do? They take redundant GPUs from all of these data centers and then rent it off them and then sell those GPU hours to you. And it will cost you roughly 90% less than if you use ChatGPT or anybody else. Okay? It solves a problem, but that is a new problem. This is an old problem. The stuff that Helium fixes is an old problem. The stuff that the noise pollution app solves is an old problem. It's an old problem that, short of going around and sticking poles in the ground to monitor it, is very hard to solve. Putting a mobile phone in Tariq's pocket and putting that in the pocket of 50,000 other people in Tariq's town solves the problem overnight. You incentivize enough people in your city to create this map, this mesh, and you solve the problem. You can see where the traffic problems are. You can see where the noise pollution is. It can help with construction sites. It can help councils. It can do an awful lot of stuff. This Hivemapper will hopefully add to the traffic congestion issue by diverting robo-taxis to avoid bottlenecks and things like that. It's a great solution. It's just not my thing. It could very well be your thing, and it's something you should go and check out. Anyway, got to the end of the stream really early, so we're going to have a chat. That's typical Tariq. Absolutely typical. Right. I'm glad I've got 5 minutes left. My objective over the last couple of weeks is to get to the end of the stream by 11:55, 11:56. So we can have a little end of stream chat, because I don't just want to sit here and blast information at you and blast charts at you and blast stats at you, because that really isn't much fun for everybody. So what we're going to talk about is what we've got planned for the next couple of weeks. There is no quiz tonight because we need a break. We think we've done 5 on the trot, 5 Wednesdays on the trot. However, there are 2 quizzes booked into the Binance calendar for the 30th of July and the 23rd of July. And at the minute, they are the Wolf Swap quiz and the Mew quiz. Now, we don't want to turn Wednesday nights into quiz nights, but again, we need some feedback. If you guys would prefer quizzes over us sitting here talking about projects, we'll do the quiz. But I don't want to become a one-trick pony. I want to keep things a little bit fluid so we can change and chop and do whatever it might be. Maybe we do half a quiz, half a stream. So maybe we do 15 or 20 questions, and we do the first part of the show either interviewing somebody in the team or we talk about the project. So Corgi AI, for example, if we did that again, maybe we'd spend 20 minutes going through Corgi AI and then 40 minutes in a quiz. So we're trying to basically tweak it a little bit. So the next 2 quizzes are going to be 23rd and 30th. We might do one next week as well, but nothing is booked in for now. Next then, we have got a 1 month marketing partnership, I don't know what you want to call it, with BC Game. Now, there will be no BC Game content on these streams. We will not talk about them. We will not include them in our streams on Binance. That is not what the partnership is about. The partnership is focused on X, making some videos explaining how it works. And of course, I think the Oracle, maybe me, will be going onto some of their live streams to talk about football, talk about cricket and that kind of stuff. These streams are not going to be impacted. And there's a very simple reason for that. Binance does not allow gaming. We will adhere to those rules. So don't think that when we sign these new deals, it's going to be a complete revolution of everything that we ever do. We talk about Maple Finance, they're now a big player. We talk about WolfSwap because they're the biggest aggregator on Chronos. We talk about Mew because we happen to like Mew and they approached us after we were talking about them. So we've not got a partnership at the minute where we don't like who we deal with. And something else I want to point out, in the last 2 days, we've had 15 applications for us to make videos about other projects. Some commission-based, some VPN platforms, some other things. We haven't done any of them, okay? If we took every deal that ever came across our table, we'd do nothing but sit here and try and sell you a load of crap. We don't want to do that. That's not what we're about. I've been saying it since the beginning. But if somebody comes to us with a project that we really like Orbi Network and their stable coin, they want us to talk about that, we talk about it because we like it. Corgi AI is an AI community project. We like it, we'll talk about that. But some of the other things that will come across, we've had Bitcoin miners approach us. We've had solar panel companies in Europe approach us. They don't fit with us. What do I know about solar panels? So you've got to understand, you know, we do take clients on, but we don't do it every day with everybody that approaches us. We have a very fine filter. It's a graphene thick filter, so nothing really gets through. And we will talk about projects that we like. And we will do it in a way that doesn't impact on what we do and what we come on here. We chat with you guys about crypto and stuff like that. And the Oracle does his TA streams. That's not going to change. But we will make videos about projects that we like who will pay us to make those videos. Let's make no bones about that. And we'll put that on X and we'll put that on YouTube. But these videos, these live streams are not going to be affected because this is about us hopefully educating people in crypto as best we can to the best of our knowledge. And we are only human. We are fallible. I am sure if you go back over the last 2 years of our live streams, we've pulled out some real donkey projects and said this looks quite good. But again, we've also picked out some pearls as well. So you've got to take the good stuff with the bad stuff. So that's the quizzes. That's the BC Game announcement. You obviously know that we're doing the Orbi and the Corgi AI stuff. We're still doing the WolfSwap stuff. Still working with Maple Finance. And at this moment in time, we're not really looking for anybody else to work with because we have plenty on our plate, plenty of people to work with. And from time to time, we might make a video or two that doesn't have any paid work. Clearly, we make our OG videos, and we made the Crow is Back video today, so that you'll get content that isn't sponsored as well as sponsored content. So don't think everything's going to be thrown out. The baby's not going to go out with the bathwater. Anyway, thank you to Simon, Bullish Bull, Mags, KB, Kishan, Tariq, and Hidden. Thank you for showing up on YouTube today. Another interesting thing, we get anywhere between 40 and 60 people watching this stream on YouTube a day. Sometimes it's 35, sometimes it's 65, but in that ballpark. We get the same people comment. Now, maybe they're not subscribed to the channel. That's a good thing. We have a setting where you have to be a subscriber to chat. So maybe that's the setting. I don't know. But if you are not subscribed, do us a favor and subscribe. One thing that we don't do enough of is ask people to subscribe to our YouTube channel, and that is probably my biggest failing. So if you're watching on Binance, if you're watching this YouTube video on Catch Up, please do us a favor and subscribe. I think we're on 6,640 odd subscribers. So I don't think we're going to get to 7,000 by the end of the year, but we can give it a go. Anyway, it's 12 o'clock. Thank you, everybody. I am not back tomorrow. The Oracle is going to stream tomorrow. I am going to stream on Friday. So this week, I am doing Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. The Oracle is doing Thursday. He's got a problem with his PC, by the way, which is why he didn't stream last night. It keeps cutting out on the software that we use to live stream. So he's going to try and sort that out today. He's going to live stream tonight. Anyway, thank you, everybody. One last thing. Danny, I need to set up a call with you to discuss you becoming the Crypto Warehouse Ambassador. I said we were going to do it from the 1st of July, and it's now the 9th of July. So for those of you that don't know, Danny is going to be the first ever Crypto Warehouse Ambassador. So, yes. Anyway, we will give you more information at the time. Thanks for watching, everybody. I will see you all on Friday. you.